Hey, Chica! Welcome to the Lovelda Show, Women of Power podcast, the show where women share their personal power tools, the techniques, strategies, and ways of being which have enabled their business and life success. I'm your host, Lovelda Vincenzi, a female speaker mentor, speaker, and event host on a mission to unleash powerful, authentic female voices onto the world. In today's episode, we'll be uncovering the power tools of Debbie Gilbert, a multi-award-winning entrepreneur and author specializing in marketing and events. Debbie is the founder of the Mamapreneurs Network and the Best Business Women Awards. In this episode, Debbie shares several books and resources which have influenced her productivity as well as her ways of being, which have been pivotal in her business and life. Remember, all links shared in the show can be found in the show notes. And the only way to ensure that you get your regular fix of the show is to click that subscribe button to make sure that you get updates as soon as new shows are added. Now, I think that is more than enough from me. So let's get on with the show. Welcome to the Lovelda Show, Women of Power podcast. It's me again. This would be episode 5. Ready for your fix? I certainly am. Our guest today is incredible. So her background is in awards, marketing, all of that stuff that you want as a woman to get your name out there so you can really be seen. She's actually helping us this year with the Female Speakers Conference. More on that later. Please welcome the amazing Debbie Gilbert.
Wow, thank you, Lovelda. That's an amazing introduction. Great, lovely to be here.
I can't be letting myself down, can I? You can't tell people that you introduce people to stages and then do a bad job of it. I mean, no pressure at all. So Debbie, not everybody who's listening in may have heard of you before. I mean, I think you're incredible. But can you give us a little bit of background in terms of what it is that you do? You have several businesses, don't you?
Yeah, so essentially I've got a marketing and events agency. So I've had that for just over 20 years. Within that, I do networking events for mums. So Mums Unlimited, we've got 10 groups for that. We do the Three Counties Expo, which is business expos up in Hertfordshire and Bedfordshire. We do 2 a year. And we do marketing for small to medium-sized businesses. And my passion, my big thing every year is the Best Business Women Awards, which is a national competition for businesswomen across the UK. And that's now in its 6th year. So essentially, that's all the things that I do, which sounds a lot, but they all link in together quite nicely.
Well, the common thread there is marketing.
Yes, it is. And it is just a way of getting your business out there, and all of these different things that I do. They interlink with one another. Cross promotion is a big thing, but also, essentially you're right. It's just getting your business out there, getting your name out there. And there are so many ways to do that. And so many people don't leverage what is available to them. And I'm here to tell people, there's more than social media out there.
It just becomes the obvious go-to place. What got you into this? Were you working in corporate marketing before, or you just stumbled into it?
My career was in the travel business. Yes, I did do some conferences and events whilst doing that, and some element of marketing. And then I had a child in 1994, and my company were not very child friendly, and I carried on working in the city for a couple of years. Found it very, very draining and didn't really see my son very much. And I decided to sell my property in South London and move back up to Hertfordshire to be near my family. And unfortunately, my dad got diagnosed with dementia at just 56 years old, which was devastating to all of us. And it kind of switched, I went back up to Hertfordshire to get support from my parents. And, all of a sudden, it was like, wow, they're going to need my support. And I still had 2 elderly grandparents alive in those days, and they were in their early 90s. So my life literally flipped on its head. And it was like, what could I do to carry on working, but to fit around all of these people that needed my help? So I did some work for a friend's husband's plumbing company, doing his marketing. And in those days, the social media didn't exist. Mobile phones were for texting, and you only had 120 characters. And it was bizarre when you look back on it. So I worked a lot with him, helping him grow his business through what was in those days very traditional forms of marketing, leaflets, the yellow pages, if anyone remembers that, you know, and dealing with, you know, lots of local newspapers, publications, things like that. And eventually ended up joining a networking group, which was a weekly breakfast. And, you know, they only have one person per profession in the group. And I went along to represent his company, and realised there were lots of other tradesmen at the time that needed help. And it kind of evolved from that. You know, eventually I went on to do my Chartered Institute of Marketing qualification, but it evolved, and it evolved because I suppose now, you know, the market is pretty flooded with people doing marketing and social media, but in those days, very few women worked for themselves, actually. You're talking about 22 years ago. So very few women had a proper business. There were women that were doing Tupperware, which is like these plastic boxes they used to sell, or Avon, a bit of Avon calling. Or they might have a cleaning company or something like that. But there wasn't very many women doing professional services for themselves. So it was quite an interesting time, really. And of course, when websites became more mainstream, sort of early 2000, that changed the face of networking, of marketing completely. And obviously social media, which began, 12 years ago, still very new when you think about it. And networking changed. So those three elements, sort of website, social media and networking, you know, I joined the very first women-only networking company in 2004. And when we look around now, you know, there is networking morning, noon and night. But in those days, there was very little networking, especially for women. And I'm pleased to say that's all changed. And so my businesses have evolved from a need, really, because lots of people sort of came to me and said, oh, you really know what you're doing. Can you help me? And I helped lots of women sort of in the early part of sort of 2004, 2005, when more women were starting to work for themselves. And by 2011, when I set up Mums Unlimited, I was sort of besieged with people who wanted my help. And there's only so many people you can help. You know, you have a business to run. And so that's why I set up Mums Unlimited, because I knew that there were so many women who needed support, advice, camaraderie, you know, and that's why I set it up. And no, I didn't think 9 years later I'd be looking at 10 groups, but there you go. I mean, it could have been much, much bigger, you know, but actually Mums Unlimited is my philanthropic thing that I give back, and love to support others. So yeah, it's been a journey, and I've learned a lot along the way. So yeah, love it. Love what I do.
Such a beautiful journey, and I love that little thread where you kind of follow the demand.
Yes, and that's what a lot of people don't do, or they jump on something that's already really, really saturated, and they try and do the same thing that everyone else is doing. And the problem with that is you're never going to stand out, and you're going to struggle to make a living if you're doing that. So you have to find the need, follow the need, but try and do something a little bit differently to what everyone else is doing. And a lot of our work is marketing mentoring as opposed to retained marketing. So I will work with people on short sessions, 3-hour sessions, and help them to go off and do the marketing themselves. So empowering them to go off and do it, giving them my knowledge, my ideas. Whereas a lot of other businesses will have stuck with the traditional model of, well, you pay me and I'll do your marketing. And there's quite a lot wrong with that in a way. I'm not saying, you know, that it's not the right thing to do, but sometimes being able to understand your own business and marketing, being really heavily involved in the marketing of your business, actually helps you develop new ideas. Does that make sense?
It totally does. I mean, I run an incubator for speakers, and the first 2 weeks of the incubator is looking at what is your speaking niche.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is I said, well, look, I can throw a ton of events at you. Like I really can. I mean, I can find events in my sleep. But what is the point if you don't know what market you're in? And then everything from there is a lot more difficult. So you can go and have somebody find it for you. But it's almost like saying, right, I've got an item of clothing I want to sell. Does anybody out there have a shop? Well, what type of clothing is it? Because I can give you a list of shops. But if you're selling children's wear and you're selling basic children's wear, and I give you furniture shops, that's really not going to be particularly helpful. So, and it helps you to get much better at being able to put your thing out there. Actually, that initial feedback, there are certain tools I think are quite helpful, even if you don't like them, right? You don't have to do them forever in your business. But sales, marketing, and finance are like 3 of those areas, I think, wrap your head around it.
Oh, totally. And this is what I was finding more and more, that I was actually coming across women who had set up a business because it became easy to set up a business. You got a laptop and a phone, you can set up a business. But they were setting them up badly. So that led me to write the book, The Successful Mumpreneur, which was published a couple of years ago, and it's had absolutely phenomenal global success. It's sold literally thousands of copies, been number 1 in Australia and Canada, and that tells me a lot, because that tells me this is not a problem unique to the UK. This is a global issue where people are setting up businesses, like literally thousands and thousands of businesses being launched every day. But you know what? The failure rate within 5 years is a whopping 98%. 98%. That's huge. So within 5 years, 98% of those businesses will not be trading. And it's not because they're bad businesses or bad people that are running them. It's simply because of lack of knowledge. That's all it is. And if you get the right knowledge and you get the right support, and you're willing to be flexible with your idea, because the idea of your business that you have today will not be the business you have in 5 years. And I'm a classic example of that. And you're willing to be persistent, which is one of the things we were going to talk about. When you asked me some questions about, what were the 3 things that I felt had seen me through my business, and it is persistence. And a lot of people give up. And I speak to people, literally had a conversation yesterday with somebody who said, oh, I've been running my business for 6 months. It's not going very well. So I'm going to give it up and go back and get a job. And I was like, 6 months? No, you're looking at 2 years.
You can't form a baby in that.
No, you can't. And this is the problem. And people, I think there's a lot of stuff online about get rich quick. Okay. And it distorts people's view of what success really is. And it's like, oh, you can earn 6-figure salaries doing this online course, and it's going to teach you how to earn all this money within 2 months, and you're going to be like driving around in this flashy car. It's absolute rubbish. You have to work at anything, and persistence is the key. And it's about having the guts to see things through and to keep pushing forwards. And if you give up, we all get really bad days, even I have them, and they're just bad days. They're the same days you get if you were working for somebody. You'll get a day where you just think, oh, nothing's going right, or is it really worth it, or a client owes you money, or something's going on in your business that's dragging you down. But you know what? You just have to be very positive about the things that you have achieved and the things that you have succeeded in that week or that month. And literally pick yourself up and get back on it the next day. It is persistence, 100%. Do you want me to talk about the other things that we discussed?
Well, before we dive into those, what do you think? Because you've had so much success, in life and in business, and you're a living embodiment of persistence and just, I don't want to say like grit strength, but just that ability to come back from something, to keep moving forward. What do you think defines a woman as powerful? What do you think makes a powerful woman?
I think what makes a powerful woman is a number of things. I think persistence is one of them, but also integrity, being loyal, being trustworthy, and really as well, keeping up to date, educating yourself all the time. And all of those are like assets to being powerful. A lot of people have this thing that powerful is all about, you know, being gutsy and telling people what you think. You know what? If I told people what I really think, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you now. I wouldn't be in business. Power is not about throwing your weight around and, you know, being objectionable and telling people, you know, oh, that's rubbish and this is, you know, do you know the sort of person I'm talking about? You know,
I do. The one who thinks the more I push, the bigger I look, the more I shout, the louder my voice, the more space I take up, therefore the more power I have.
I know. And I can't mention the person's name, but I did an event a good few years ago, and I won't even mention the name of the event because that would be identifiable of the person that I'm going to the story that I'm going to share. But booked a speaker to come and speak at the event. We had 4 speakers, and we'd done application only, and we'd selected 4 people. And this woman rocked up with 2 or 3 of her staff and demanded to know why a parking space hadn't been allocated for her outside, and had parked her car in a disabled bay, and basically told me that's where the car was staying until we got her a space right outside the venue.
You can't see my face right now, but my eyes are popping out the sockets.
But you know what? Her whole attitude and demeanour basically left me feeling, you are never setting foot in my event again. I would never recommend you to anyone. And this was a person talking about self-development and empowerment. But the way she was talking was very much about, you've just got to have the guts and the balls to tell people what you want. And this is how you close a deal. You know, you just get it on the line with your client and you tell them, you don't like my price, blah, 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 blah. The whole way she was behaving. And I sat there and thought, oh my God, I should never have booked this woman to do this talk. This is just not my ethos. But the show reel that I'd seen, she hadn't been like that on the show reel. So I only had the show reel to go by. But it left me feeling, if that's a woman of power, that is not the kind of woman I want to be. So I don't believe powerful women need to behave like that. They need to behave with kindness and, as I said earlier, and integrity, and really be willing to support lots of other people. And that's how I've built my business, through supporting other people, because then people are always happy to support me.
I love what you say there, this idea that grace and elegance and softness and vulnerability can also be beautiful qualities that make up, and in some ways essential qualities that should be incorporated in your power. You don't need to lose them and throw them, you know, dispose of them in order to be somebody of power. There are lots of very strong, caring, loving, feminine, giving women who have a very powerful impact in the world. So that's beautiful, and thank you for bringing that to mind, because it aggravates the hell out of me too. I'm like, please, there's a time and a place for having that. You don't need the bravado. There's a difference between holding your boundaries and being this person who's, you know, forcing yourself upon people and making other people wrong in the process. There's actually space for both of those to coexist. So before this interview, we asked you for 3 of your power tools, the first of which you've shared already, which is persistence. And I'm not going to lie, I couldn't agree more. I'm just like, gosh, please, somebody preach. But it's funny because I experience exactly the same thing working with women. I mean, I've had it myself sometimes. You have the weeks where it works really, really well. But sometimes I just find that unfortunately as women, we set ourselves up not to be successful. It's like we have this huge dream, and rather than kind of breaking it down into something that we can do in an achievable way and remain.
Can I mention a book, Lovelda, that I've read recently? Actually,
what's the book?
It's called The 12-Week Year.
I think
12-Week Year. Oh my God, it's literally, well, I read it quite a while ago. It's revolutionised my thinking around annual plans. I've always done annual plans, monthly targets, all the rest of it. But now we set down 12 weeks, 12-week year. So you work on everything over a 12-week period, and it feels a lot more achievable. You're chunking it down into weekly activities that build up into your 12-week plan. And if you haven't read it, I think it's Brian Ferran or something, 12 year, well, you can find it by Googling the 12-week year. Really
we'll add it into the links to the show notes. So the 12-week plan.
12-week year.
Your first power tool is persistence. Can you tell us what tool number 2 is? I'm all excited now. You've got loads of good stuff.
The second one is productivity. So quit arsing around on Facebook, on Instagram, on LinkedIn. And this is what I see a lot of. I'm like, or going to loads of networking events and never following up, or not being strategic in what you're doing on a daily basis. And often when I sit down with people to talk about marketing, and then you get under the hood of their business, and it's like, geez, you're just not productive. You haven't formulated a working week. And a lot of people that work for themselves do not formulate a working week, because what happens is, you work for yourself. If you've come from corporate, you'll find that a lot of these people, they get up in their pajamas and they sit at their desk, and then they might do half an hour on Facebook, and then they've got a to-do list, but they don't quite get it done, and then they go off and they're not answerable to anyone. That's the problem. They're answerable to no one. And so productivity goes out the window, and before you know it, it's Thursday and you haven't got your stuff done that you wanted to get done on Monday. So, you know, that has to stop. You will never have a successful business if you work like that. You have to work like the 12-week year is actually really good in terms of helping you focus. But I work on, we use a task management software called Trello. There's loads out there, Trello, Asana, Monday.com. Find something that you find useful and that you can work with. But then find a couple of accountability buddies. So if you do work for yourself, go out, go to some networking events, find a couple of other entrepreneurs, ideally maybe people that you might end up referring work to, and they might refer work to you. That's always a good thing. But find people you can be accountable to, because ultimately otherwise you'll never, unless you're extremely self-motivated, and those people are extremely rare. I'm one of them, just saying. But, you know, you'll never get stuff done, and you'll end up in a kind of almost like walking through treacle, very slow progress. And, you know, I've just built, or my business has just built a website for somebody. 3 to 4 months we have been asking for the content. 3 to 4 months.
Ouch.
Exactly. They paid for I make people pay for the website. And generally, once they've paid the money, and the reason we do that is because it makes them give us the content. But, you know, generally people, you rarely get this, but you do get it sometimes. And I just question, you know, hang on a minute. You know, what we need is some pages with some content from them. We can even tart up the copy to get onto their website to get it live. You know, 4 months, not acceptable. You know, and it's about prioritizing your workload. So you need to have a proper list of activities you need to do, and they need to be segmented into daily, weekly and monthly tasks, and then probably quarterly if you're doing VAT returns and stuff. And you need to make sure that you are productive and that you work to your productivity levels, because, you know, I am a person that works actually better late in the afternoon and early evening. So if I'm writing stuff, I'm better to do it then. If you ask me to write something at 8 o'clock in the morning, you're not going to get my best work, to be honest. So you just need to break down those tasks and what your productivity levels are, and get a planner and start planning out your week properly. And use online tools, outsource stuff if you can afford to. I appreciate not everybody can, but outsourcing works really well just to get some extra help to get stuff done. And you will sail through those lists if you've actually got an end goal in mind. And most of us, the end goal is money in the bank.
It's interesting that, like, I love what you're saying. Like, to me, I just think, you know, to sort of add to that, sometimes we just want to do too much.
Yeah.
Like, sometimes the easiest way to be more productive is commit to fewer things.
Yeah.
It's like, if you don't have so much to do, and you know that writing website copy is going to be time consuming, then that period when you've got to write the copy, just commit to less things.
Yeah.
Then you've got more time to go with your natural flow of getting things done. You have control over your diary. Nobody can see it. If you tell them you're busy,
exactly. You are busy. And there's another book, I'm plugging all these other books out there, called Eat That Frog. And that's all about procrastination. And it's another great book that I read many, many years ago. And there's a revised version come out recently. And you know what? Eat That Frog is all about doing the worst jobs that you really hate doing in the first thing, you know, just getting them done and out of the way. And anyone that knows me knows I hate accounts. I've got a very good accountant, but they will know me to know that I hate sitting doing anything to do with numbers and figures. I hate it. I do it, but I hate it. It's my least favourite job. It's like cleaning the toilet. You know, we have to do it, but we hate doing it.
I don't want to do it, but it needs to be done.
No. That's my worst housework task, is cleaning the toilet and picking up dog poo, you know, stuff like that. We all hate doing it. So yeah, pick your worst tasks, get them done and out of the way. And if you need upskilling on stuff, for God's sake, there's help out there. Everything from online to face. You can get help with any task in your business. You just need to go find it. And then you'll be more clued up and more able to deal with it and be more productive.
I think the other thing with productivity is work to your strengths. You know yourself, right? I was having a similar conversation with my husband yesterday, and I'm very clever at figuring things out. I know me when it comes to working. I have to eat the frog. So if it comes to copy, I don't enjoy writing copy. I can write very good copy, but for me to do it, it has to be the first thing I do when I get up in the morning. So I get up, I write a copy, I'll block out like 2 days where it's like there's 20 pieces that need writing, and I'm not stopping. I'm not doing anything else until those 20 pieces happen. So the emails are building up and I'm being chased for this and chased for that and the other thing. But I'm like, if I step away from this,
you're right. You are
it's
so
not
right.
going to happen, right?
No.
My husband doesn't do stuff in the morning, right? It's just not how he operates. He'll sleep. So unless there's a meeting, he's not getting out of bed. He's just going to snooze, right? If he puts it in the middle of the day, it's also not going to happen. And it's not going to happen because he started doing other things. So, you know, now it just gets bumped. So for him, what I've suggested is just block a whole day out. Like, just don't have anything planned that day, such that you can get all of those things you need to get done, because you're not capable of squeezing them in. That's just not how you naturally operate. So I think honor your natural operating system. Don't break it.
No, you're right. And that's what I advise people to do, you know, because we all have that time of day that is the sweet spot. And the other thing you briefly mentioned about emails, I see people being ruled by their email box. And I can't even remember who told me this. It was years and years and years ago. I went to some, you know, one of these events, and someone stood up and talked about managing emails. And you are the one in charge of your emails, not the other way around. And too many people, productivity is affected by email. So, you know, when you're working on something, like when you're writing your piece, you should be, like you just said, switch off your emails, don't be distracted. And, you know, maybe you put an out of hours thing, well, not out of hours, but you put like an auto message, and you just say, I will respond to you within 24 hours. And that takes the pressure off. And don't be ruled. Because this guy was saying, you know, you could literally sit down in the morning at 8 o'clock and spend 2 hours dealing with emails that have come in. And he's right. And at the time I was literally doing that. And I thought, oh my God, he's so right. And I went away and thought, right. So he suggested once a day for 30 minutes. And actually that's what I do. And sometimes people will get an immediate response because it might be that I'm responding to somebody else at that particular moment. But, you know, on the main, I don't dip into my emails 5-10 times a day. You know, I'm literally once a day. And I try and fit that around the other stuff I'm doing. And it does make you more productive, and it gives you more time to focus on what you should be doing, which is activities that generate money.
And generally, unless it's a sales email, it's not doing that.
No, it's not. It's really not.
It's probably costing you money and precious time. Most of us are not working in emergency services. It's not that deep. It can wait. It can wait. It's just your ego that won't let you let it sit there. Just let it simmer for a bit.
Yeah, good.
You know, sometimes it's better that way.
Of course it is.
What's your third tip, Debbie?
Do you know what my third tip is? I mean, reliability, which might seem a bit like, what? But you know what? I'm going to tell you now, so many people are unreliable in business. And I mean, actually, if you're a woman sitting here and you're listening to this and you're working in a company, this is people in life are so unreliable. I mean, it shocks me. And I'd like to leave this world, and the one thing that people say about me was, oh my God, she was so reliable. I could always depend on her. Dependability is so important, being reliable. You know, I'll give you some examples. People, you know, I went all the way to meet somebody for a one-to-one about 20 minutes, half an hour from where I live. She wanted this meeting at 9:30, so I'd battled through the traffic to get there Turned up, no sign. Sat, got a coffee, no sign. After about 20 minutes, I called her, because obviously sometimes people are late, and I accept that. Oh, sorry, I completely forgot, was the reply. I was like, really? Okay. So can we organise this for another time? And you're thinking, yeah, great. So if I recommend a client of mine to you, that's your standard. That's your standard. That you couldn't be bothered to check your diary. How can you forget an important business meeting? It's bizarre. And that's not happened to me once. That's happened to me several times, so much so that now if I arrange meetings with people, obviously I add them to Google Calendar. Not everyone uses Google Calendar, I appreciate that. But I will email them the night before. I will then email them on the morning or text them on the morning to remind them again. Because reliability is a big thing, and there are so many people who are not reliable. I've had things where I've passed business leads to people, they haven't followed up. How embarrassing is that? I've done something for somebody and they haven't even bothered to thank me. You know, just a quick email. I passed some business or a lead to somebody. It wasn't even business, actually. It was a lead about 18 months ago, and then happened to bump into this person again about 6 months later. And she was like, oh, by the way, she goes, thanks for that lead you passed me. I got 10K's worth of business from it. And I stood there and I thought, and you haven't even had the decency to send me a little email at some point to say, thanks for that. That says a lot about people. So I think we have to really focus on being reliable, being trustworthy and authentic, and showing up and actually giving back and showing that we care about other people. So there's a whole lot of stuff sort of encased in this reliability. You know, not letting people down. And we just had somebody pull out of one of our events this year, which it's annoying when you book somebody like August of last year to do something, and then they suddenly out of the blue just email you and go, oh, sorry, you know, I can't now make it. It's annoying, it's irritating. And I question sometimes, you know, there are times, if we actually talk about speaking gigs, where, you know, I've been booked to speak at an event, and actually this came up a couple of weeks ago. So I was booked for 2 events in a week to speak about awards, and on one of the days somebody called me with a paid job, £1,000. Now I could have let those people down and taken the £1,000. However, what was more important to me was actually that would have really dropped them in it, a very short notice. Yeah, I would have been £1,000 richer, but actually in the long term, the £1,000 is a lot of money, but actually letting somebody down could potentially cost me far more than £1,000 in the future, because your reputation is priceless. There is no amount on that. And I told a couple of people this story last week, and they were like, you did what? Because I wanted to test the water and thought, you know, are people still quite shallow? And I think, you know, I'm still on that mission to educate people to stop being so shallow and to honour those commitments that they've made. The gig that I was doing was not a paid gig. So therefore I turned away £1,000 for something that I wasn't being paid to do. However, you know, if I'd have let that person down, they would never have recommended me to anyone. They would definitely not have booked me potentially for something they may have paid me for in the future. And the audience I was exposed to that day was a lot of my target audience. And I made some really good connections there. So sometimes you do have to suck it up and think, yeah, okay, money might seem attractive and it's this £1,000 is being waved at you. But actually, by letting somebody else down, what have you got to lose? And you do need to value that.
I kind of flip these things around, and I just think you've got to be the sort of person you'd want to work with.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you're okay with people dropping you in it at the last minute all the time, I mean, don't complain when one of your clients pulls out at the 11th hour, or they decide that they don't want you know, they said yes, it comes to the first payment, and they decide they don't want to do it, when that's precisely who you're showing up as. They simply want to be a reflection of you. And so I think, you know, there's a lot to be said for treat others as you would like to be treated. I'm sure your mother taught you that.
She did. And you know, that was the one thing my mum taught me. And somebody put a post up. Oh, my mum's long gone. She died a couple of years ago. And someone put this post up quite recently, actually, and said, oh, what did you learn from your mum? And my mum was a difficult character. I'm not going to sit here and you know, she was a difficult woman. But you know what? Very early on in life, I remember getting invited to 2 birthday parties when I was a kid. And I'd come home with this invitation to this party, girl in my class. And I was like, oh, you know, I'm going to so-and-so's party. That's amazing. Then about a week later, I come home with another invitation to a party the same day. And this little girl's parents had a swimming pool. This was a pool party. And you got to remember, this is like in the 1970s, Lovelda. Very few people had swimming pools in those days. And I was like, oh, Mom, I'm not going to go to Rebecca's party now. I'm going to go to Victoria's party because she's having a pool party. My mum was like, you most certainly are not. And I stood there and she was like, you have told Rebecca you are going to her party and you will go to that party.
That's exactly what you're going to do.
Yeah. And she was like, in life, you never let people down for a better offer. Never. And she taught me that, and I've carried it on into my business life, and I've taught my kids that. And I've had these conversations with my kids. I mean, they've grown up now. Never, ever dump somebody for a better offer, because that will come back and bite you. And my mum was right, you know, she really was. And I watch it happen to people all the time. I've seen people dump on somebody for something what they think is better, and it's turned out to be absolutely not the right thing to do, and it's come back to bite them.
Short-term gain, and you don't make relationships are so important these days, and you get out of them what you put in. And so, you know, at the time you said yes to it, that's what you meant. And if you didn't want to do free, you should have said no.
Exactly. No, exactly.
Said no, right?
Just don't do it in the first place.
But don't agree to something and then get frustrated because they haven't paid you your full amount. And you agreed to it. You knew the terms. Just don't say yes to that stuff.
No, you're right.
Breathing, Nora. Gosh, we've gone on a little
I know.
It's been great.
Wow, it's been great chatting.
Well over time, a little bit. This has been fantastic. I love what you've shared and just how open you've been in terms of bringing back some of those softer sides of business and having that beautiful reminder that we don't need to be hard-faced. I'm going to say it, put your fingers in your ears if you don't like it, bitches, in order to get ahead. Yeah, I said it. It's the best way to put it through. So
you don't need to stab people in the back to get on in business. You don't need to be that person. You really don't.
You can be very successful and have great results and great relationships at the same time. So Debbie, how do people stay in touch with you? You've got a number of different links. We'll put them all in the show notes. Don't worry.
Yeah, put them in the show notes, and then they can pick out what resonates with them, because obviously I do work with very successful female entrepreneurs across the UK, but I also work with women on that very early stage of their journey, even pre-startup. So I work with people from A to Z, really. So just, have a look in the comments, and I love to connect up with people, and especially on LinkedIn, actually, that's a great place to connect up with me. So Debbie Gilbert, I'm on LinkedIn, and if the other kind of things that I do resonate, then obviously connect up and follow us on our various social media platforms, etc.
And if you want to come meet Debbie in person, she'll be at the Female Speakers Conference on the 27th of November. Female Speakers Global.
It's going to be amazing.
Here. Trust me, she is as lovely in person as she is coming through the earwaves.
Oh, thank you.
Right now. Genuine, beautiful soul. Thank you so much for your time today. Ladies and gentlemen, or just ladies, whomever you are, you've been listening to the Lovelda Show Women of Power podcast. Until the next episode, please make sure that you click that subscribe button so you get notified when we're live again. Now, please go out there, be resilient, be persistent, and don't